Ladies and gentlemen, let's just shift gear and in fact talk about something which is very, very real and at this moment facing a problem or almost an existential crisis for island nations. Concerns over the rise in sea level, and now the concerns have been in fact in Baku at the COP29. This was one of the major in fact themes that the smaller island nations in fact have spoken about. The landmark climate case in the United Nations court, the island nations fear that they will disappear because of what is happening, the warming of the global temperatures, which is resulting in the rise of the sea level, apart from, in fact, acidification of the coral, around these islands. The World Court opens this climate change case. The plea is to seek legal intervention on climate crisis. This plea has been filed by 99 countries in the ICJ, the largest case in the UN court. Now, the plea also demands accountability to be fixed of the major polluting nations and case to examine responsibilities of developed countries. In fact, any decision by the ICJ would be non-binding, but this case is after years of lobbying by island states. This case, in fact, to decide the country's obligation to protect climate and environment, which is massively and adversely impacting especially the small islands. In fact, many of them in the next 30 to 60 years could even face complete extinction because of the rising sea level. Now, what in fact could be a way forward, and how will this case, the legal consequences of this case, how will this impact the climate finance which has been agreed in COP29? To discuss this, I'm being joined at this moment by Seth Warren-Rose, founding director, NREF Institute Climate Change. He's a climate change expert. We are joined by Avinash Mohanty as well, global sector head of CCSIPE Global. Gentlemen, thank you for taking the time out and speaking to us. Let me start by asking you, Mr. Rose, this is a real threat, and in Baku, in fact, small island nations at length spoke about the existential crisis that they are facing, and more because of the changing, warming of the climate. How serious are these studies, and what does this, in fact, mean going forward?
Well, it means we're going to see a very different terrain in not, I won't, but folks that are, very young today, when they're my age, they're going to see cities that you and I have been accustomed to living in that are just simply not going to be there. I'm concerned about, Jakarta. I'm concerned in India. I'm concerned about Mumbai. I mean, there are cities in the United States. Los Angeles is probably in trouble. Miami, it probably won't exist by the time people born today are my age. So we're going to be living in a different world, Earth 2.0, but not the good kind.
Can I understand this further? The impact of these rising sea levels. We are talking about these islands and, of course, the cities that you mentioned near these oceans. But is there a way? I mean, can something be done? Because we keep hearing about these, climate objectives and missions on the ground. Very little translates into action.
Can something be done? Yes, something can be done if we redirected all of the resources that we're currently spending on technology to energy efficiency. I remember the European Energy Agency a few years ago did an interesting study, and they looked at if everyone purchased all of the energy efficient systems that are currently on the shelf. In other words, not the big SUVs that people like to drive in the U.S., but the most efficient cars, the most efficient air conditioning, the most efficient. We could cut our emissions by almost 50%, and that would solve the problem. But I don't see any way to get there because the economic forces are moving us in a different direction.
Mr. Mohanty, is there a way to fix accountability? Like, for example, the case that we were talking about, these island nations also want the developed nations to, the accountability to be fixed and also a cost to be imposed because they are paying the price because of the most polluting nations which are beyond their borders.
Good evening, Ankit, and good evening, Dr. Rose. You rightly pointed out about Mumbai, Jakarta, and other cities. The small island developing states are not just, it's an existential crisis. It is more of a problem of getting an issue converted into a larger issue. And now a larger issue is been panned out as a disaster. And this disaster, what has happened is, in terms of fixing the accountability, it has taken 30 editions of Conference of Parties, and we have severely failed in terms of putting that accountability on countries who have eaten up the largest carbon sink. And after eating up the carbon sink, there is accountability yet to be proved in terms of the resources, what Dr. Rose just spoke about, required. So A, what is more important, and this is a landmark kind of international court of justice accepting to hear about the small island developing countries, and that actually shows a lot of solidarity. The COP29 that just recently got over in Baku also highlighted the solidarity among the vulnerable countries when they voiced out that this much amount of resources is required. So this is very good from the optics point of view, but what is a problem is too little, too slow. Is what is the problem. The rate at which the climate change is happening, and as a result, the impacts, the frequency and intensity of extreme events increasing and breaching thresholds, and the sea level rise, you can easily visibly see all of them together across the coastal cities. But what is happening by and large is these cities, these regions are going to be impacted more and more. Not just these cities, other portions of the cities are getting impacted. And unfortunately, what is happening is the voice of the marginalized communities who are going to be impacted most is going to be impacted most, and they are getting impacted. So this climate injustice action need to start at home. And countries like developing countries and the other developed nations have started this foray, but they need to get started with having more and more grassroots level climate actions and this advocacy is happening at a larger space. Only this can first track and make accountability at home. That can translate into region, that can translate into global developed countries. So that's the trajectory.
In that context, Dr. Rose, without decisive global intervention, not only these small islands and the cities around these oceans face a problem, but it will be a devastating impact on economy and other means as well. Like you said, there will be an Earth 2.0 with now, and I'm just asking in context of what has happened in the United States, one of the the superpowers in this world. Donald Trump has already pulled out of certain agreements. With the new regime coming in, I mean, how seriously can we expect these big nations to in fact come down and stare what most people are talking about, which you said is going to happen in less than 3 decades?
Well, certainly by 2070, we're going to be living in a different planet. But you talk about the economic. I don't know how we can generate the kinds of revenues that we need to fix everything. I mean, building a home, if you could just imagine, everybody is involved in some kind of construction. Imagine if you had to take that same home or that building or whatever and make it twice as strong. And the costs are going to be more than double. I did a sort of back of the envelope analysis on what it would cost to restructure everything that we have to prepare for the new climate that we're going to have. It's in such a large number, trillions. It's so large it's hard to get our head around it. But if you compare the Indian economy, which is a huge economy, it would take, if we use the entire India economy, the GDP, everything that's purchased and earned in India, it would take 120 years of the entire India economy every year donated in order to solve the global issue of protecting us from the new climate. That's, basically building resiliency into everything that we have.
Is there a lack of will, lack of understanding, or deliberate, in fact, shutting of the eyes when it comes to climate change? Dr. Rose?
It's expensive. It just comes down to it's expensive. No, there aren't that many people that have a lot of extra money that that governments can throw to solve the problem. We're dealing with, emergencies. Climate is something at this point that's important, but the world has so many emergencies, wars and diseases and, the things that are going on right now. But, we're looking at disasters, flooding, tsunamis, droughts. We're just at the beginning of this inflection point, right? We've sort of seen it like this. It's going up, and we're at a point now we're going to see it really skyrocket. So what we see today, this year is the best weather we're going to have in our lifetime. Every year it's going to be worse than this.
And this already has been declared as the warmest year so far. So, this is a warning, Mr. Mohanty, a warning which this is not the first time that this warning has been sounded off. This warning has now been sounded off for many decades, to say the least. Like you said, things can, happen, things can begin at home. What would you like to see, let's say 1, 2, 3, that can happen immediately, at least to try and begin our effort in some sort of a solution?
Yeah, the first and foremost is you need to identify the climate threat. And in order to identify, you need to, all of these climate projections and the discussions that we are having is a 2050, 2100 scenario. And Dr. Rose, I'll be happy to say you that in Mumbai, at least, we are trying to develop the first of its kind multi-hazard risk atlas that maps the risks that are going to come down and hit Mumbai in a 5-year and 10-year time scale. As a result, what has happened is the BMC, or the municipal corporation, and the government of Maharashtra, as well as under the aegis of government of India, have now pulled up their shocks in terms of making razor-freight actions.
Right.
And those razor-freight actions are going to be treated, and we need to treat climate change or the issues of climate change more from the larger perspective of managing pandemics.
Okay.
During COVID, the world came together to manage it. Similarly, it's an international global emergency. We all have to pull up our socks. We all have a role to play, and that's how we have to treat it. The sooner we treat it, at least some better results we can expect.
I agree with you, but
go ahead, sir. Go ahead quickly.
Yeah, I would just jump in, and there's really, you asked for 3 ideas. There's really one idea, and we have to change our economic system. We have to put a global tax on carbon. In other words, there's no incentive to be energy efficient because the savings isn't enough. We need to tax carbon, and we should restructure our global economy around carbon, which is the villain in climate change. Carbon dioxide, just to be clear.
Yes, gentlemen, thank you so much for speaking to us. We are hoping that the role that we can play is keep making enough noise around this so that at least somebody somewhere listens and hopefully action will be taken. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for speaking to us here on NDTV.